So, what does it mean to be a man today? It's a question that's becoming increasingly prevalent. It's complicated, it's political, it's personal, and for young men especially, it can feel like there's more judgment than guidance. It's certainly not the sort of thing that you naturally expect a university comms team to talk about, but at UWE Bristol, it's exactly what they decided to ask. In this first episode of the University Comms podcast, I speak to Siobhan State and Jazz Whiting about a bold campaign they created that puts positive masculinity front and centre. It brought together voices from across the university and the city, students, academics, athletes, even the Mayor of Bristol, and it's now up for a Heist Award. We talk about what it took to get it off the ground, the risks, the reactions, the things they're proud of and what they learned along the way. And we ask, what does it take to make a campaign that challenges people but still gets them to listen? If you work in higher education comms, marketing, student engagement, or just care about making university life better, this one's for you. I'm Gareth Hughes, and this is the University Comms podcast. So hello, thanks for coming along today. I guess just to get things started, do you want to just introduce yourselves and tell us what your role's involved in?
Yeah, so as Gareth said, my name is Jazz Whiting. I am one of the Central Communications Officers at UWE for the Student Comms team. And yeah, worked there quite a long time now. So worked on various different campaigns and done a lot of our kind of harm reduction work in regards to drugs and alcohol. And then yeah, me and Siobhan is obviously in the team as well. And we kind of teamed up on this campaign. And yeah, it was really exciting and fun thing to do.
Well, thanks for coming along. And Siobhan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Siobhan. I've been working at UWE Bristol for, I think it's coming up to 3 years now. So my background, initially I worked in news and then I worked in police comms for a long time. And then I joined the student communications team at UWE and my role is a college officer role. So whereas Jazz is part of the central team, I specifically work within one of the 3 colleges at UWE to support staff and students there. But then alongside that, I also do campaign work. And yes, I kind of came about from kind of to work with Jazz on this particular campaign because it was something that I was really interested in. Also, the college that I work within has a lot of male students. It includes like kind of subjects like engineering and computing, traditionally male subjects. So it kind of made sense for me to be involved in it as well.
So Siobhan, can you just give us a bit of an overview about what you actually produced, what the video looked like?
So the title of the video is What Does It Mean to Be a Man in 2024? And the video features a range of current students, academics, key prominent figures within Bristol, our Students' Union, and it is posing that question to each of those people and their kind of almost like one sentence answer to that question of what it means to be a man. And it covers a range of topics around mental health and violence against women and girls and male friendship. And it kind of then ends with posing that same question back to the viewer in the hope that it kind of prompts that kind of conversation and discussions about modern day masculinity, really.
And that was followed up with some Vox Pops a few months later.
Yes. So then for International Men's Day, we did a series of Vox Pops around campus where we posed that same question to students in a much more kind of informal way, and also had like a range of amazing answers from really, and it genuinely was us going out there and just kind of catching people wandering around. Quick explanation of kind of what we were doing, and some of them it was sharing the original video to show them what it was kind of all about. And they just came up with again some really heartfelt, genuine stuff. Again, a lot around mental health, friendships, kind of being there for people, respecting people. Yeah, it was really, really lovely.
I guess just on that note then, do you just want to give sort of an overview about what the campaign was and maybe where it came from?
Do you want to start, Jazz?
Yeah. So because I think I was probably the one who actually kind of had the meeting. So one of my stakeholders at the university is safeguarding, the head of safeguarding. And basically she kind of came to me and said, you know, we've got data that shows that kind of incel culture and kind of right-wing extremism is on the rise in kind of the Bristol area and kind of the southwest. And she, you know, especially amongst the age group of sort of men who are coming to university. And yeah, she just kind of raised concerns and sort of said, you know, can we do something about it? How can kind of comms help the problem? You know, what can we do to kind of raise awareness of that? And then, yeah, it kind of from there, me and Siobhan, obviously, as I said, I kind of got her, well, we got involved with it. And then really it was a lot of kind of research and data. And I think that has from the beginning really kind of led us in this campaign. It's been really important to kind of get a real understanding of what that picture looks like, both kind of, I'd say like nationally, but then also locally as well, actually within kind of UE Bristol itself. And yeah, we quite quickly realized that kind of trying to focus on incel culture in particular was quite difficult. We were lucky because we've got some great academics at UE who kind of specialize in this area, specifically kind of around violence against women and girls, kind of that whole sort of subject area. And yeah, they were really helpful, weren't they, Siobhan? Because they kind of helped us sort of direct us, I guess, into where we got to, which was kind of the sort of positive masculinity focus and kind of doing the reverse of what sort of Andrew Tate and similar people have done, which is kind of using that influencer role model and kind of flipping it to being a kind of positive thing. So yeah, that's kind of where it started, sort of somewhere that felt quite difficult. We kind of didn't really know quite how to go about it. And then yeah, through data and insight, which yeah, Siobhan, if you want to kind of go into a bit more about the kind of data side of things of what we found, yeah, we kind of got to a place of going, okay, actually let's focus on the positive side of things and go down that route.
Yeah, I think, quite quickly, some of the conversations that we had with academics who specialise in kind of online misogyny or right-wing extremism, they kind of urged us to be kind of realistic in what our goal was and what our message was going to be. Obviously, for men who are kind of deep into that online world, that's a very dark place. And how realistic was us that we were going to be able to have much influence if somebody's already kind of immersed in that type of world? So we kind of decided that a better thing to do, or a more achievable goal, would be to try and pitch our conversation at all men, especially young men who are just kind of finding themselves as to what kind of man they want to be or what they're trying to grow into. Yeah, work and pitch our work as a kind of counter to the voices that become very prevalent online that are selling that really toxic, negative view of manhood and masculinity, and try and use influential voices to do the opposite of that and to try and promote positive masculinity. And yeah, we did some really interesting research and training, looking particularly at the space where before men come to university, when they're at school, the work that's being done in that space to kind of lower secondary school and that kind of early mid-teen sort of age. We went on a training course with lots of teachers and educators where they were talking about the conversations that were happening at school level and the work that was being done in that space to try and kind of tackle that, but also kind of have that positive role model. And actually they talked quite a bit, I think, in that meeting about the importance of the messaging coming from other men, that male teachers have a massive role to play in schools around that kind of messaging. And yeah, we were very aware that we are both women and that actually our student communications team is entirely female. So that when we kind of approached the campaign, we knew it couldn't be the university telling the male students this messaging. We wanted it to come from other men and other men that they would kind of look up to or respect or feel interested in hearing what they wanted to say. And that was kind of our main starting point when we tried to work out what we wanted to do.
We also did quite a lot of kind of, as well as the research around the kind of topic, we did go out to our current students and kind of said, like, you know, we're thinking about talking about this. What are your thoughts? Is there anything that you think you would work better? And I think that then kind of reconfirmed the concept of it being about positive masculinity. Quite a lot of them sort of said that actually the phrase kind of toxic masculinity or having like a blaming tone would just put them off completely. And I think that was massive because I think, again, I think we could have quite easily gone down that route and it, you know, and I think work we'd done previously around kind of sexual harassment on campus, and we got, you know, real experiences from students around that. I think we probably felt we were going to maybe go down the more toxic masculinity route initially. And then I think, yeah, it was a really good step, I think, to go, okay, yes, we are both female. Let's go out to our male students, ask them the question and see what they think. And I think, yeah, that just kind of reconfirmed that as the kind of basis of the concept of the film, really.
Yeah. I imagine, based on my experience working in universities and with a topic like this, that it might not have been kind of like smooth sailing to get it off the ground. I don't know, I might be wrong, but were there any challenges that you found trying to get this approved, trying to get this kind of stood up? And did that insight from students help with any kind of discussions that you had, or was it kind of like people just no, kind of go for it?
Yeah, I think we thought there might be some resistance or some nervousness maybe from the university, but I don't think there really was. I think maybe twofold. That one, this isn't the first campaign that our student comms team has done that has tackled a difficult subject or a potentially controversial subject. So like Jazz said, we've done previous work that was very bold around sexual harassment, which involved putting up stickers in toilets around campus with real life experiences. Jazz has done a lot of harm prevention work around drugs and alcohol, which has been very open, honest conversations with our students about drug use. So I think that helped, that we had kind of a relationship where stakeholders at the university kind of trusted us that we kind of knew what we were doing. And then also I think the second thing that really helped was the decision for it to be a positive campaign. There's nothing really in the video kind of that was eventually made that I don't think it's very controversial at all. It really is a celebration of positive masculinity of our male students and staff and people within Bristol talking very like passionately and honestly about the positive ways that you can be a man. So I think that also helped, that it wasn't we were approaching it in a really kind of, we weren't trying to be inflammatory or anything like that. It actually it is a really positive message.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking then, so once you've sort of got that off the ground, that initial insight, what kind of process did you follow then from there? How did you arrive on the video? What was your kind of creative process like?
So I think we arrived at a video. I think, again, we always knew we wanted it to be really visually engaging. I think early on we knew that one of the objectives was that we wanted it to be a visually engaging piece of content that, kind of encouraged thought and, it was thought provoking and all of those kinds of things. We're really lucky, I think, at UE because we have an in-house film production team. So I think, quite quickly we kind of had the concept of what we wanted to do. I think once we realized that also we really wanted to obviously target male students and we started looking at the content that they are also interested in, we sort of realized we wanted quite a sort of slick, almost advertising style video, because that was the kind of content that gets a lot of engagement, whether it's like a kind of a Nike advert that is both inspirational, but also, looks cool, I think is one of the things that we were just like, we just want them to see it and be like, yeah, this is a cool film. So yes, as I said, we're really lucky because we have a film production team. So I think quite early doors, Sean, we had a conversation with them and they were really keen to get involved. And then really it was just kind of about the actual planning of it, I guess. I mean, Siobhan, you were amazing at doing it. Siobhan was so much better than me when it came to she was so good because she was also really aspirational. I think I was very much probably also because I'd maybe been in the team 3 years so I was honestly, if we're getting students involved, it's her herding cats. And then I was and then Siobhan was let's email celebrities. But that was amazing. So Siobhan, you did more of the actual kind of organizational side of the film part, didn't you? Kind of pre-actual filming.
Yeah, working once we had an idea of what we wanted the concept of the video to be, and that idea of posing the question of what does it mean to be a man and giving the voice to the male participants of the video, then it was well, who do we want? And my kind of idea was, let's just aim big, in a dream scenario, who do we want in this video? We knew we wanted it to feel like Bristol, so I was just emailing people, celebrities, football players, and also in my mind I was to appeal to a wide range of students in terms of who do they aspire to be, who influences them, who do they look up to. So we're looking at music people, actors, sports was quite a big one, could we get any sports people involved? And then in the end, it kind of some of those shots paid off and we did get people that we had approached. And then also the more people you get on board, then the easier it is to get other people on board once they realise. I'm getting the mayor of Bristol, who I was a bit worried that he wouldn't want to do it. You said about it being controversial or putting yourself out there on a topic, which is some people could see as a bit tricky. But him and his team were really on board. And then once we had a few people like that, we knew we wanted to include students as well, wanted it to feel like their video. So we kind of aimed it at some people in Bristol who were kind of prominent or well known or kind of from an industry. We wanted current students. So we went to kind of sports students, and we used our Centre for Sport for them to help get in touch with some people that they thought might be interested. Yeah, some academics. Our SU we wanted involved. So we spoke to the SU, and they had people that immediately were like, yes, we definitely want to get involved. And so then we kind of pulled together a short list, really. And again, it was a bigger list than we ended up with, because some people dropped out, or we just couldn't get the filming days and times to work or location. But we kind of wanted to go like all out, and then we'll see what we kind of end up with. And then, we were so happy with the balance that we got in the end. It felt like a really nice mix of people. Like current students and other people either linked to Bristol or the wider university community. And then it was more about the logistics of getting people in the right place at the right time, getting the shots that we needed. And a lot of that was kind of, as Jazz said, we have like a production team at UWE. So they had a very kind of good idea of what they wanted it to look like and like the places we needed to shoot. So one of the ideas was around kind of setting the scene and having these participants in the surroundings that kind of represented them and who they were or what they did. So for instance, Corey, I think he's graduated now, but he was a student at the time. We wanted him like on the basketball court. So going along to their training sessions, doing a lot of set up shots and filming all of that stuff, filming him in situ for kind of him looking down the lens of the camera for his hero shot, and then arranging another time to sit down with him and record his voiceover. So for every single participant, we had to organize all of that. And that was probably, the most time consuming thing was just the logistics of all of those things.
And in terms of sort of timescales, how long did it take from the kind of initial conversation that you had with the safeguarding team through to the point at which you were filming the video? Was it?
It probably wasn't as long as we thought it might. I'm trying to think. Do you know when your first meeting was?
I feel like I think we've been saying, it was about 6 months from like initial conversation with head of safeguarding to kind of doing the research, coming up with the concept, working with the film team. And the other thing that the film team did, which was really useful, I think, because quite early on we just knew what it was going to look like, was that they provided us with like a slide deck and like an idea of like inspiration, and we could watch certain things. And so I feel like that part was actually really quick. Like once we had the concept and we're working with them, that was very quick. Obviously our film team do work across the university, so it was also a case of working out when they had time. But I think it was about 6 months. And I think filming, it did go on slightly longer than we were expecting, just because of timings of things and getting everyone. But I think probably 6 months in total, I think.
Yeah. And the filming bit of that was probably over 4 weeks.
Yeah, maybe a little bit longer.
Maybe a bit longer.
I think we did quite a big chunk, did we, of like a month? Yeah. And then we had like the voiceovers were kind of dotted around those last sort of following month, and then editing, and then
Once you got it filmed, you then planning the launch. What did that look like? What were you planning on doing? And how did you sort of define what success would look like? I think with these type of campaigns, when it's about behavior change, I know you talked about this at the conference where we met, that it's hard to kind of define what your objective is. What did you decide on as your objectives?
Definitely one of them was to kind of actually just the creation of the film itself, I think, was just to, really create a thought-provoking, kind of impactful campaign about kind of, what it means to be a man, modern day masculinity. And then really it was kind of, I think it became about sort of showcasing like the genuine voices of, like Siobhan said, we wanted it to feel like Bristol. We wanted students to watch it and feel like they were being represented. We wanted it to feel authentic. But I think it is really difficult. I think in terms of behavior change.
Yeah.
That's just really hard. And we find that across all of our campaigns. I think for us, it was about kind of, I guess the closest objective that we had to that, Siobhan, was kind of about encouraging conversation and also continuing the conversation, I think, as well, which we also mentioned at the conference, which was like not just creating this film, launching it and then being like, okay, on to the next thing. And it's actually like we've really kept using it to kind of encourage the same conversation, but about things that are coming up kind of in the news or and things like that. In terms of launch,
Yeah.
Siobhan, it was kind of, I think again because of the time we didn't do it at the wrong time, but we kind of, well, by the time it was done and was almost over, so
Yes.
we kind of did do the launch, didn't we? But we
Yeah,
very
I
much
think,
in our head
yeah,
it
we
was-
didn't have like a thing to pin it on, did we either? I think, yeah, it got to the point where we needed to get the video out before the end of the year because it included current students who were going to be graduating. Also, I think at that point the Mayor of Bristol was standing down, so we knew we needed him to still be in post when the video launched, and so we decided let's just go for it, let's get it out there. So in terms of launch, it was kind of social media, all of our platforms on social media, some kind of promo to our students, to our other channels that we have directly to them. But as Jazz said, it wasn't just about we're going to launch the video and then that's the campaign done. It was like, let's get the video out there, let's launch it, and then let's start planning how we can use it and continue the conversation. That was the whole point of the video, is to start that conversation. We want our students to see it. We want to get them talking about this. We want to feel like it's a movement, that it's not just a one-off thing, it's throughout their time at university. We want them to be thinking about these types of things. And so then almost really as soon as we launched the video, I think it launched in the April, we were looking ahead to International Men's Day, which had been on our mind for quite a while.
Okay.
International Men's Day and International Women's Day is always really important as a comms team for a university, but also that kind of drive to meaningful content. It can feel like a tick box exercise, and this felt like the perfect opportunity to have a really meaningful conversation on International Men's Day. And so then it was kind of like looking ahead, right, in 6 months time we're going to have International Men's Day, how can we use the video, how can we kind of continue it and follow it up and create something new for that. So it was kind of a bit of a springboard for that long-term conversation. I think that was the idea.
I guess just to maybe separate those two things out. So to begin with the launch, what was the reaction like? Was it as you expected? Was there any negative reaction? Did it start that conversation that you were looking for?
Yeah, I don't think there was any negative reaction really. I think so we have a separate social media team, and we'd worked with them in the build up to make sure that like the edits we had for the video would work on all of our different channels. We kind of worked out what we wanted, like the captions to say and posts to say and things like that. But we were very, very prepared for it to kind of spark a lot of negativity. But no, it didn't at all. I can't really remember any negative feedback, Jazz.
No, I don't think so. No, I really don't. I think it was received really positively. I think also just when we were filming, I think it was really interesting because, as Siobhan said, we filmed a lot of training sessions, the rugby and the basketball, and it was obviously the rest of the team kind of knew that something was happening, but they didn't really know what it was for. And I think that was one of the really interesting things that was a real insight into then the conversations that I think happened later, which was, we were getting other players coming up to us going like, what's Corey doing? Like, what is this actually for? And then when you'd explain it and they'd be like, that's really interesting. Like, that's such an important thing that I feel like we should be talking about. I think that was really reflected then afterwards because, comments and stuff on the videos were always, really positive, saying that it was, an important conversation. But then I think what then we did do following that on International Men's Day when we basically decided that, as Siobhan said, we then kind of knew we had 6 months to kind of plan for that day. We knew we wanted to obviously share the video again. But one thing we really wanted to do was to kind of bring the current student voice back into it and we basically came up with the idea of working with the social media team and doing vox pops on campus to create a kind of more informal video for social where we were asking students the same kind of question. And again, I think, we had the film also projected onto the side of the SU. We've got a big screen there. And again, I think talking to the students in doing that, I think even then we were kind of apprehensive about going out and kind of asking the question, but I think it is something that they are talking about. And I think the film just encourages that. And some of the answers were just really lovely and were exactly what we were hoping to hear, kind of thing.
I guess timing wise, because this was pre-adolescence, right?
Yeah.
So that I guess now there's a lot of conversation around this subject. And there was anyway, but even more so now since adolescence has come on. Has that changed the way you think about the campaign and what you might do next?
I think it maybe encourages us to be again, maybe bolder again in it. Really interestingly, when Adolescence came out, the time scale is that the video launched last April, so April 2024. International Men's Day, November 2024. And then I think Adolescence was like early 2025. And so we did another series of kind of social media content around adolescence and reinforcing the messages of the video, resharing the video, and like some other kind of supportive content that we had around that. Yeah, interesting, because like obviously Adolescence is telling the story of a younger person and our audience is kind of a little bit older than that. But a lot of the issues that kind of came up on that are some of the things that we'd been talking about through our original campaign, especially kind of how much time people are spending online, the voices or the kind of the influences that they receive by being online, and what that does to how you feel about yourself, your mental health, all of those things. And actually when we did the original video, so the question of the video is, what does it mean to be a man in 2024? And that was a very honest, like authentic question to the people in the video, and they could say whatever they wanted as the answer to that question. And interestingly, like the things that they all said, it does reflect in where the conversation is at today. So it is talking about violence against women and girls, also just around that kind of self-awareness of our male students, of the image that they present or the way that they behave when they're out in public, and how that makes other people feel, how it feels to stand up for what you think is right compared to what culturally might be around you or what your friends are saying. And mental health and loneliness and like friendship, male friendship is a big one. And so that original video just kind of covered all of these things, just genuinely by the participants saying that as their answer, and they were the things that they were thinking of. I think when we made the video, that was the thing we were maybe most worried about. Like, is this too difficult question just to answer in a single sentence, especially for someone who's young and might not have thought about it before? But interestingly, I think they all said, I love being asked this question. I've really enjoyed thinking about what this means to me, and thinking very carefully. They really kind of took that responsibility for what their answer was going to be in this video, and they just covered so many amazing things in the way that they answered. It was a really lovely thing to hear all of them do their voiceovers in a very easy, honest way. I thought, they're going to come in and say, I don't know what to say, just tell me what to say. Because quite often they'd say, is there a script? And we'd be like, oh no, there isn't a script. But that was like a massive highlight. And now when you look back with hindsight, having kind of seen the conversation around adolescence, it's a very hopeful video, I think.
Absolutely. If someone was watching this that works in another university comms team and wanted to run a similar campaign, what would your advice be about where they should start and what they should consider?
I think speaking to your students, I think, is like a massive thing. I think if you can get an idea of, we always like our campaigns, like I said at the start, to be driven by data and specifically the opinions of our current students. We want it to be relevant to them. And like you say, these behavioural campaigns are so difficult anyway. But to try and do that without any kind of student voice, like you're missing a trick, first of all, because what you get from them before the campaign, is always useful to try and evaluate to some degree. So I think try and go out and speak to your students and see what's important about that topic to them. What are they talking about with their friends? Because that will definitely help. Because like Siobhan said, there were so many different avenues we could have gone down with it, from the really extreme where we started, but we could have done it about online presence or online spaces and staying safe in that. Do you know what I mean? There could have been so many different things gone down, but this was very much driven by the research we did, but the insight that we got from our students. I think it's going to hopefully hit a lot better if you've got that insight. So I think that would probably be my main thing. And in a similar way, looking at the kind of stuff the content they are consuming, to get an idea of, because I think like we said, the style of the film was very specific, because we know what a university video film looks like. Even just the small detail, like Siobhan said, of setting them in the space that quite quickly the viewer knows what they are and what they do, saves you having to put a little thing at the bottom which says Corey, UEJet, Sam. Do you know what I mean? So which feels a lot more corporate and feels a lot more sort of like a normal university film. And again, that was the film guys. That was very much them going, this is what a normal university film looks like. We don't want it to look like that. We want it to look like this. And it's like this aspirational, as I said, advertising style video. So I think, getting data, getting insight, and then understanding what content they are consuming that is similar to maybe what you want to create, I think is a good starting point.
Yeah.
I think also on that I feel like I feel like I learned this during this particular campaign, is that I think sometimes you can get so focused on like how is this going to change the world, or how is this going to make a difference, or how are you going to measure the success, that you can almost just be too scared to do anything. Because we certainly felt at times like, oh my god, how are we going to solve this problem? Like, we're not going to be able to solve this is not, and so easily we could have just been like, actually that's too big, like let's just not bother. And I think that putting the conversation out there, even if you don't really know, is this changing anybody's views, or is this making the difference in like the way that you might really, really want it to? I think it's just about doing it and like putting that message out there, giving it a go, seeing how everything lands and like where it takes you next. Like, doing something is better than doing nothing. And that's something that we've definitely felt that this video is prompting a conversation, even if it's just amongst certain groups of our current students, or it gets seen by other groups of people out there, that start having a conversation is better than just not doing anything. So just go for it, I think.
Being brave and just doing it, definitely. We so often get caught up in that feeling of like, well, what if it doesn't make a difference? And actually I think you're absolutely right, Siobhan, about being brave and doing it anyway.
That kind of brings me on to my next question, which is kind of related, which is, what did working on this campaign teach you about student comms? What did you kind of take from it? Is it informed the way you're going to work as a team in the future? Have you got kind of other ideas for kind of other subjects that you might tackle with a similar approach?
I think one of the things which kind of Jazz has already kind of touched on is it's made me feel more brave about using student voice a lot more. It was such a positive experience, and like, it was challenging and it was hard, and bits of it were kind of tricky, the logistics, but chatting to students and using them in the content, I think that's something that we now try and do a lot more. So I think it's taught me that. And maybe as well, like the just being brave thing that when me and Jazz first said that we wanted to make a video, like, I had made videos in the past in a previous job, but our manager was a bit like, okay, a video is a really big project, like you're relying on other people, it's not like a short term thing you're going to be it is a challenge, like, are you sure this is really what you want to do? Maybe we were a little bit naive, we were like, we just really want to do a video, but actually it was just like a really positive experience, and it taught us a lot about how to make a video and like what things you have to consider. So in terms of that, I think it just told me to kind of be brave and try new things and do things like a bit differently.
And again, on that topic of kind of doing things differently, just kind of to reflect back on how things went and what you did, is there anything that you would do differently if you were to start this again, or if you were to run this campaign again?
I think if we could I think the one thing was the timing. Like, I think if we could completely control the timing, we would have shifted it so that then we could have launched it, say, on like International Men's Day. But having said that, one of the things I was going to say about the things I've learned is that actually it isn't about just producing something and then being done. I think one of the nicest things about this for both of us is that we worked so hard on the film, and we're so proud of it, getting to continue to share it in different ways. As we talked about adolescence, we've also done blog posts around it, and then doing the Vox Pops and stuff like that. I think actually that has been something that's been really enjoyable, kind of returning to it. So I think both, thing I've learned is that I actually quite like it when you've got more time and you can build on something. But then I think if we could have controlled it, we probably would have been at least launched it sort of at a time where we knew maybe more students were. But then it's still got really good engagement. So I'm kind of talking myself out of it. But
I think also on that I suppose if I had a wish list for how we could have improved it or made it better, it would have just been to have more people featured in the video. I mean, we wanted it to be like a short, succinct video. And so if we'd have had everybody we wanted, and I think we wanted way more representation. We have like male healthcare students that are part of our university that was like, oh, that would be a nice thing to have in there, that they're going for that very like a caring profession. Like, how does does masculinity fit in with that? And we have like an arts campus, like what's different, like the different types of masculinity that is shown through that. We wanted to include people from our LGBTQ plus community, and like the scale of everything, all of the people that to make that such a like rich, diverse video which showcased so many experiences would have also been amazing. But in reality, we needed it to be a short video. These were the people that replied and said, so we could never have had everybody we wanted. And maybe that just means there's scope for the future in terms of this kind of longer term project that we want this to be, and the different kind of little avenues we want to go down with all of the things that this brings up. Then there's potential in the future, especially once you've made a video and you can show people this is our message, this is what we're trying to do. Like, would you be interested in doing something similar? I think we couldn't do everything in this one video, but we're trying to that as more opportunities for the future of other ways we could kind of look at the topic.
Okay, well, thanks, Jazz and Siobhan, so much for joining me today on the University Comms podcast. If anyone is interested in watching the film that we've discussed and the Vox Pops as well, it'll be in the show notes on the app that you're watching this through. But yeah, just thank you both so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Have you got a story to tell? If you want to be featured in an upcoming episode of the University Comms podcast, you can drop me an email at unicommspod@gmail.com.